Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Michelle Holling-Brooks here from Unbridled Change, and you're listening to Soulful Practices Podcast. More beings are awakening to the call of their hearts and soul to live a life that is in alignment with their true self, launching themselves on a spiritual wellness journey for evolving their systems from being subconsciously survival-led to being consciously soul-led with all aspects of their life, with like true holistic health and wellness and being. That's the physical, emotional, mental, spiritual. And yes, we want to be in alignment too within our careers, our financial life, social life, and family life, and in recreation too. While the spiritual journey of becoming aligned with our true self throughout all facets of our life is absolutely amazing, it can also feel overwhelming, lonely, isolated, and leaving us not really know where to go next on our path of awakening. This podcast is dedicated to helping you along that journey. I've been on my spiritual and wellness journey for over 25 years now and been doing this full-time as a soul companion, guide, and coach with my clients since I started Unbridled Change in 2008. And one of the main questions I'm always consistently asked is, hey, Michelle, what type of spiritual or healing and wellness practices will best support me on my journey of aligning to my true self? This podcast is the answer to that. Each week, I will share with you a new episode that brings you into the behind the scenes of my own personal soulful healing practices, and I invite you to join me in them. Each week, I'm going to be sharing with you a new soulful practice that is based off of what I like to call different pocket teachers. These are short mindful quotes, a spiritual key concept or healing concept, or a short text from a spiritual and growth teacher and wisdom teaching. And they are designed to help serve as a guide for us, a companion to us throughout that week, to help you courageously connect with the soul-led choices that will best help serve you in making the choices that will bring you into more balance so that you can live, love, and lead your authentic life. Truly going from having that desire, the intention to have a soul-led life, to embodying and unbridling your beautiful soul-led life. Again, I'm your host, Michelle Holling-Brooks, and I'm so glad you found us. Let's dive into the soulful practices for this week. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Soulful Practices, where we are bringing together pocket teachers to help us courageously connect with our life. And this week, I've picked a new quote to build on a soulful practice around for this week, and it's by Pema Chodron. And Pema Chodron is an American Tibetan Buddhist nun, author, and speaker, and she loves to bring teachings forward that help center around our ability to learn the skills that we need to lean into, to open to be curious about some of those aspects of life that we would rather move away from, that we struggle with. And she helps us compassionately learn how to turn towards those and open to them. And through that, releasing ourselves from undue suffering and helping us open up to more inner freedom and alignment with more choice and more self-liberation to be who we truly be. I love her work, and when I found it, it was definitely a key part of how I became able to work with myself and to shift gears from being in struggle and silent suffering and like tug of wars within my own system to really being feeling like I had the skills within myself to liberate myself, to work with myself, and to understand myself. So she helped me pull back the curtain as I dove into her work. And one of my favorite quotes by her is the quote that fear is a natural reaction to moving closer to the truth. Okay, so this is Pema's quote. Fear is a natural reaction to moving closer to the truth. And as we feel into that, this quote, that just fear is just this natural byproduct that we're going to feel within our system. So therefore, it can be like a little like good trigger, like a good glimmer within our system of like, hey, there's a truth that's trying to work its way through into my consciousness, into my ability to work with it, to partner with it, to accept it, and to ultimately liberate myself. The true self set you free, right? To add another little pocket teacher in here. And how does it do that? Well, one is the truth asks us to step into change, right? When we feel a truth within our own system of knowing that there is a new way of thinking or perceiving or partnering with our life, or a new choice that really wants to be unlocked so that we can take a leap of faith for ourselves. When we do that, it's natural to have a presence of fear, of inner doubt, of a little question popping up in the background, right? It's natural for us to feel a little sense of anxiousness or even anticipation. And allowing ourselves to see that that fear is just a natural indicator that we're moving towards truth in our system, so that we can begin to distinguish between a protective fear and just a natural, we're stepping into unknown territory. We're going to take a beautiful, courageous leap into a choice that we might not have had before. Because our mind is just designed to resist change, evolution, new truths coming in, new ways of being, new ideas. Instead, it loves to stay attached to the known, the old ways that served us in the past. And while they might have been beautiful and exquisite for how they served us in the past to help us meet whatever situation we were in, that doesn't mean that they're going to continuously being a service to us. That what served us then doesn't always necessarily serve us now, and definitely maybe not into the future. So part of this self-expansion and bringing more connection into being able to hear our own inner guidance, to free ourselves up to courageously live the life that we feel guided to live, to make the choices that we want to take those leaps of faith within ourselves and within our lives, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, relationally, financially, work-wise, all those things that we know are going to help bring us greater balance and wholeness. We know that we're going to have to buddy up with fear. In my first book, The Horse Cure, I have a little section in the introduction where I talk about fear being my companion, myself befriending it, that I was nervous to write that book, to put down on paper what was at that time my life's work, which I had dedicated myself to within the field of equine partnered therapy and coaching and activities, of really allowing myself to share the behind the curtain scenes look into the special way in which I work with those fields and partner with horses and partner with you to help bring forward the healing and the growth that my clients were looking for. And it was really intimidating to say, okay, I'm going to be willing to be vulnerable. I'm willing to be true with myself as I write this book, to be able to see, the places where I was like super excited and knocked it out of the park, but also awareness of the different stumbling blocks that I had hit throughout, that 20-year journey of cultivating that presence and that ability to work in that field. And one of the things that I realized very early on, and Penman was one of the teachers that, through studying her work helped me realize this, is that when we start to step into things that really match what our soul is asking to bring forward, like creating a product or an offering, or taking a leap of faith towards a relationship or a connection, whether that be work-wise or personal-wise or spiritually wise, fear is going to be right there. And it's going to be trying to knock on the door and say, are you sure about that? Do you really want to do this? It's going to have some hands on hips and all of that stuff. And what I said to fear when I was writing that book, and as I'm writing my second book and putting together offerings like this, is like, come alongside, pull up a chair, sit with me, because I know if you're here, that means I'm on the right track. And instead of feeling like it was there to sabotage me and back me off of following my inner guidance, I was able to feel that there was this calm center behind that fear. And so that's how I knew that I was on the right track, right? I could feel that inner oasis and that guidance bringing me forward and inviting me into courageous movement, even though that fear was definitely there. So I told it to pull up a chair, sit alongside me, and to be with me as I walked forward. And as I walked forward, I stayed in the listening, the connection, everything I've been talking about so far in Soulful Practices, and will continue to talk about and share in my other programs and offerings that I have, that it's really about feeling the way that we can shift ourselves from backing off when we feel anxiety to instead turning towards that and getting curious. Like, what is that about? What is there? What is wanting to be seen, felt, or heard in there? When I first started meditating, I thought I was doing it all wrong. I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot meditate to save my life, because as I sat there, I would just get more agitated. I'd get more like my nervous system was not deregulating itself. It was increasing itself. I was becoming more disorganized. I was like wanting to like get up and run and like scream at the person, the poor little teacher that was like teaching me, or the book or the guided meditation recording that I was following. I really felt this, instead of feeling, quote, better and more calm, it was the exact opposite that was happening in my system. And I really thought I was broken. I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm like one of these people who can't do meditation. I can't do it the way all these like techniques we're talking about, of like turn your thoughts into a cloud and watch them as they just drift away, like just allow it, imagine a river with your emotions and the thoughts that are coming up in that, just flowing through, and just circle back to the breath or focus on the candle or whatever the heck it is that I was up to, that I was learning that meditation tool from. And one of the things that I really noticed is that the more I sat, the more just like ideas or memories or random things were popping up and coming into me. And there was more and more fear of like, oh my gosh, what's the next thing that's going to pop into my mind? What's the next thought? What's the next like aha? And I realized that fear was starting to meet me before I even would, quote, sit on the cushion or come into that way of being. And I really was like, oh man, I can't keep doing this. I don't know what other way to do it, but this is definitely not de-stressing me, right? And I came across this little book of like how to meditate that was by Pema Chodron. And in that early book of like beginning meditation, she talks about that how we do not meditate in order to become comfortable. And, that in other words, what we're doing, what we're up to when we're meditating is not always to seek the goal of feeling good, right? And she was the first person that I came across that said this, like we're here to down regulate the system, to get us into this ventral vagal state that allows us to feel a state of flow and calm and ease and connection and like all these like science words. And I was learning under the guise of mindfulness-based stress reduction, like this is what my goal is to reduce stress. And she was the first teacher that I found that came in there that said, I know you might be a little shocked by this, but the actual goal of meditation is not to simply feel better. In fact, if that's what you're trying to reach, you're not really actually in true meditation, because the purpose of meditation is not to feel better, is one of the main things that she teaches. And instead, she teaches it's not also about feeling bad, because that's all I was experiencing. I was like, where's the bliss? Where's the wonder, right? And so I was like, okay, this gal might be onto something. She might be teaching some truths here. And I also felt a little bit of nervousness to keep listening to her. I was like, why is that? Well, because it was about ready to like help me free myself up. Because one of the main ways that she teaches meditation is that it's more about cultivating the opportunity, the availability to gain the skills of learning how to compassionately open to attending to whatever is going on right now in the present moment, to connecting us into what is it that I need right now, what would bring me more balance, what needs to be seen right now, heard right now, felt right now, in order to free me up from suffering and let me step into choice, right? Step me out of that tug of war, push me, pull me in my system between my mind and maybe my body and my heart, and allow me to start to have a dialogue to bring them all together. And I love that her teachings really helped me embrace the truth about what meditation is up to. It's about learning how to be aware of my thoughts, not just turning them into little clouds and letting them float away, but to get behind the scenes, to pull back the curtain, so to speak, and to look at how am I really running? What are my habitual habits and thought patterns? What are my survival patterns and trauma patterns? What is it that I is driving me from behind the scenes of my choices that I don't even know is making choices for me? Like, oh my gosh, look who's driving my bus right now, and it's not me. And could I then find compassionate ways to take that back, to free myself up from those old ways of being, patterns that were subconscious, unconscious, and even consciously knowing that I was backing off from what I heard within my own beautiful heart center. And having the tools to be able to compassionately identify them, become aware of them, accept them. That's the fear part with the truth that she's talking about in her quote, right? So that then I can actually have my greatest superpower on board that I have as a healing and co-creative agent, which is choice, my ability to make a conscious choice. And by learning how to compassionately attend to the parts of me that I found in that quiet, when I slowed down, when I opened up to the question, what is present within me right now? What can I sense or feel within my system right now? What thoughts are present right now that are serving me or maybe not serving me? And how could I compassionately work with those questions in a way that ultimately freed me up from inner suffering or bashing myself and really brought me into inner gratitude about, like, wow, look at how I was able to survive whatever situation that was that created that survival or trauma adaptation. How amazing is that? Give myself gratitude, give myself grace, give myself a blessing to how amazing it was that I was able to maneuver in through whatever way that I was through that place. But now that same survival skill is no longer serving me. Now it's creating a distance within myself. And I know that there's a part of me that's afraid and nervous about changing this and coming up with a new way of being. But if I can do that, if I could free up that choice, then I step into greater wholeness and greater well being. But to be there, it all starts with a willingness to pull back that curtain. And fear is the biggest protector, like standing in the way of that curtain and trying to get us to back off of it, trying to get us not to ask that question, right? And why is it doing it that way? It's because it's its job to try to keep us in the known. Like, our mind is really, really, really attached to the known ways of being. And our heart is saying, you know what? Let's step into the unknown. Let's expand. Let's grow. Let's shift. Let's change. Let's embrace a new way of being that serves us now, right? And to stay open to shifting and changing in the future. So it's not even trying to create a foundation that will never ever alter again. It's saying, no, we're going to become much more customized, much more in the moment, and much more able to be with this inner channel that continuously asks this question: what will serve me right now? What would be best for me? What item or way of being within myself do I need to see so that I can work with what choices are available to me in a more conscious way, in a way that's in alignment with who I truly be, versus an old survival or a trauma tape, right? And this beautiful quote by Pema, that fear is a natural, right, companion to when we are moving closer to the truth. When we can bring that in, then we can learn to befriend fear, tell it to pull up a chair, sit down beside us, and then it doesn't derail us. And instead, it's almost like a measuring stick of, like, oh, I'm going the right way because it's there, but there's also this beautiful heart center that's helping me stay aligned. So this week, the healing practice that goes with our soulful practices for the week is just around that, of cultivating more comfort with the different versions of fear and starting to really allow ourselves to identify the different types of fears that are coming in. When we could feel it as a, oh, nobody's going to read this book, or, nobody's going to like that, or don't say something silly, or, like that somebody can make fun of you about. Like when we can hear that and say, okay, I hear you, I got that, step aside, and then still open ourselves up to courageous choice and action, that allows us to say, okay, fear, thank you so much for that awareness that I'm moving to being more in alignment, more truth within my own self. And I am still going to move, right? So that empowerment. And when we do that, the suffering of this push me, pull me over here and back in our mind and our heart tugging at each other, pulling each other apart, starts to dissolve. And instead we start to come into more alignment. Right? So this week, that's the practice that I would invite you into, is to cultivating this ability to say, okay, fear, pull up a chair. Let's have a dialogue instead of me trying to avoid it, push it aside. Oh, I'm not afraid, right? Numb ourselves out to it, or let it back ourselves off of a choice or an awareness or a knowing that really wants to come in, that will really free us up. So let's just take a moment right now and practice this and begin to set ourselves up. Just take a few deep breaths in and out. And just let that pocket teacher come in. That fear is a natural reaction when we are moving closer to truth. A truth that our system wants us to hear, to see, to know, to accept, so that we can free ourselves up, so that we can step into a greater choice that's in alignment with what will actually serve us now versus what might have served us in the past, right? And we're going to start with just checking into right now, what are you feeling in or around your body with this quote? This idea that this week we're going to be asking our system to intentionally let fear pull up a chair and sit beside us. We're not going to like give it the wheel, but we're going to let it be next to us so that we can begin to cultivate and discern what are the different messages held within that fear so that we can attend to it. Because that's part of what Pema's teachings are, is that meditation allows us to compassionately have attentiveness to the parts of us that are present right now, right? And befriending fear is one of the huge ways that we can do that. So, what do you feel in and around your body with that invitation to befriend fear as a natural response and byproduct of moving closer to truth? And just go ahead and make a little note of it. And now just invite your system to associate, like, what are your thoughts? What are the different parts of you, the different protectors are managing, the little bobbleheads sitting on your shoulders in the back of your head? What are their opinions, questions, concerns about this practice this week? What excitement might be present? Sometimes they are associated with what you're finding in your body. Sometimes it might be something separate. And it's okay. They don't all have to match. We're just going to write them down. Now, inviting those to kind of step back a little bit, and we're opening up now to your heart center. What would your heart like you to know about befriending fear as just a natural part of moving closer to honoring your truth, to hearing your truth, to seeing your truth? What is that? What does your heart have to say about that? Is it a little nervous? Is it excited? Does it feel like open and inviting, or a little bit like closed in, little raised eyebrow looking around the corner, so to speak, of like, I don't know. What's present in that heart center? Now, if it feels good to you, however this works for you, opening up to that soul level, that idea of that wise one self within, or the team that is there to help give you guidance and knowing. What would your soul like you to hear, sense, see, know about the practice this week? What intentions would it like to bring forward to have you explore this week? Okay. The intentions that I feel coming forward for me is that I would like help with allowing myself to notice fear more, to notice when I have a subtle different shades or levels of fear that are slightly getting me to separate from a choice point that might be present for me, or stepping into curiosity and compassion and turning towards myself to tend myself, that attentiveness, or even just opening to seeking truth, to being willing to hear it, to tune into a meditation where that truth might meet me at the door and say, come in, right? And pull up a chair for me. So I want to set my intention that this week I would like my system to help support me in allowing me to recognize the different various shades of fear that are separating me from my true choice, from compassion and curiosity, and then also hearing and seeking truth. So please guide my attention once we set our intention for the week. Each day I'm going to ask for my guidance to guide my attention into the awareness of those moments, right? So now that I've set that intention, now I want to have a little antenna up in the back of my field that's going to help me be aware of those moments when I can feel in my body a protective fear cutting me off, right? And therefore keeping me from connecting with the new truths that want to come in. So this might be, I might feel like a sense of a wall or something blocking me from like seeing a choice. Like I just don't know what to think and da 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 da. Something that I'm getting ready to ask a question, or I have a concern and I'm about to reach out to somebody to help me work on that, or reach into my own self with a meditation or a prayer. And I feel something stopping me, backing me off from seeking that connection, either externally or internally. And so I'd like to be aware of that moment. I'd also like to see maybe when I feel a sense of constriction, something restricting my ability to offer myself or another compassion and curiosity and inquiry, right? That was our one from a couple soulful practices ago when we worked with that the beautiful teaching of compassionate inquiry, right? Bringing ourselves in to be who we are, right? And when am I restricting myself from that and backing myself off from that? So when I find these body sensations, this feeling like blocked or like I can't see or hear, I can't speak, I'm stopping myself from reaching for connection or asking for it, or I'm like restricting myself and like narrowing down that ability to step into compassionate inquiry, I want my system to help me pause, soften, and turn towards, to look inward in those moments for that awareness, to illuminate the parts of me that are lost and maybe stuck in a wounded story or perception or fear based thought, a protective thought. And then when I feel that and I pause and I turn towards, I would like to set the intention right now that the beautiful Reiki energy will help my focus flow to what new truths need to be seen within my system that are going to undo those protective spells, right? Like free up the different areas of me so that I can connect inward and access those new levels of truth and choice within myself. Asking myself the questions like, what do I need to see right now? What do I need to hear, to know, to feel that best supports me? And I'm setting this intention right now to help me listen and to match my inner guidance. So, right now, maybe even take a moment and what's coming forward for you with how you would like to work with this quote this week, that fear is a natural reaction to moving closer to truth. I'm committing to this practice this week. I'm excited to see what comes forward. I'd love for you to share with us and with each other, what aspects are you able to befriend more of you as you say to fear, go ahead, pull up a chair. I want to walk with you to learn how to befriend you, to access more truth and choice within my system, right? Really allowing yourself to engage with what do I need right now? How do I attentively attend, compassionately attend to myself in the present moment that normally without this practice on board would silently pass you by, right? And what can you engage with this week? So this is Michelle Holling-Brooks. I'm so excited to be offering one of my teachers that really helped me on my path, and offering that's to you this week. And I'll be curious to see how that comes forward for you as you step into courageously connecting with your life. Offering you light, love, and joy. Bye. Thank you again for joining me in this episode of Soulful Practices. I'm honored to be a guide for you on your spiritual and wellness journey. Your commitment to becoming soul-led within your life is a gift to both yourself and to every being. Together, as we become more aligned with our true self, we truly do create those ripples of light, of love, of joy that goes out to all beings and empowers us all. So please share what parts of this practice spoke to you. Share with us your ahas or how this practice is working with you throughout the week as you go throughout your daily life. And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so that you can stay up to date with the next soulful practice and pocket teacher that wants to help you create that courageous connection to your soul-led life. If you feel called to share this podcast with your friends and family or to write a review, please do so, because it will help increase that beautiful circle of soul-led companions throughout this world. Together, we can create a beautiful, soulful conversation, connections with others, and help each other on our journey. Like Ram Dass says, we are all just walking each other home. Again, this is your host, Michelle Holling-Brooks. Until we meet again in the next Soulful Practice episode, offering you a blessing of light, of love, of joy on your journey.